Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, Some Frontier video. My name is Jay Wakefield, and today's video is going to be somewhat of a political, almost rant video, so kind of please forgive me for this. Now, I don't know how many of you know, but last year, there was quite a raucous, well, not just a raucous, but quite a controversial thing happened when Councillor Colin Brewer actually turned round and said that children with learning disabilities, babies with learning disabilities should be put down as they cost the state too much money. Well, on the 8th of July, at the beginning of this week, today being Friday the 12th of July, on the 8th of July, a news article appeared on the BBC News website about this councillor. And I would like to read that for you right now. And the title of this article is Cornwall Disabled Row Councillor Colin Brewer Censured. A councillor has been censured for his grossly offensive, quote-unquote, grossly offensive comments that linked disabled children to deformed lambs and banned from premises where services for the disabled are provided. Colin Brewer, who said in 2011, sorry, not last year, 2 years ago now, Colin Brewer, who said in 2011 that disabled children should be put down, resigned from Cornwall Council but was re-elected in May. The council said that it did not have the power to legally remove him. Mr. Brewer, 68, from Wadebridge, has been unavailable for comment. And there's the surprise. Do you think? A formal investigation started after Mr. Brewer told the Disability News Service, or DNS, he believed that there is a good argument for killing some disabled babies with high support needs because of the cost of providing them with services. Significant distress. The independent councillor's comments sparked nearly 200 complaints to the authority. Details of the council's decision have been published on its website. It said that Mr. Brown had seriously breached the members' code of conduct and the highest level of sanctions available had been imposed on him, include formally censuring him for his outrageous and grossly insensitive remarks and significant distress that they caused. The monitoring officer who led the investigation has also recommended that Mr. Brewer should not sit on any committee that might deal with issues relating to disabled children or other vulnerable members of the community. Frustration shared. Mr. Brewer will not be nominated as the council's representative on any outside body involved with providing support for disabled children. A statement said, "We recognise the strength of feeling on this sensitive issue and share the frustrations of the members of the public over the limited sanctions at our disposal. The monitoring officer has made it clear that if the powers had still been available to the council, he would have either recommended that the Councillor Brewer be suspended or referred the matter to the first tier tribunal, who would have had wider powers of sanction available to them." Councillor leader John Pollard told BBC News he believed Mr. Brewer was going to resign. "I do understand that Colin has informed the monitoring officer of his intention to resign from the Cornwall Council. Mr. Pollard told BBC News. It says here, to resign from Cornwall. Herp derp. Cornwall Council said nothing had been received in writing from Mr. Brewer. The council emphasised it had never had the power to quote-unquote sack councillors, although it could previously suspend them following the investigation and determination of the Code and Conduct complaints. However, government changes to the Code of Conduct complaint process last year means the sanction can no longer be used. The council is considering writing to the Department of Communities and Local Government to express its concern over the removal of the authority's power to impose meaningful sanctions. And that's the end of the article. Now, this for me, it raises a whole host of questions and thoughts which I've been meaning to share with you on camera for a wee bit. First of all, Colin Brewer, I mean, it's bad enough that they can't actually sanction him, but I think the biggest elephant in the room here is that Colin Brewer actually said these remarks in 2011. You know? That's 2 years ago. And yet, and yet, he was re-elected in May, which basically means enough people went to the polls and actually elected this councillor. Now, seriously, guys, what on earth? I mean, I know of another political figure who had quite similar views about people with disabilities. He was an Austrian chap, and he was he was pretty popular in the 30s. I believe his name was Adolf Hitler. Yes, that's right, Adolf Hitler. You know, people kind of think of Adolf Hitler as just hating people of the Jewish faith, but that is actually not the case. I mean, lots of people were persecuted by the Nazi regime, and it all kind of started with disablist persecution and kind of, a stance for eugenics. I mean, everyone knows Hitler wanted to create the perfect Aryan race. But I mean, it kind of all started with wanting to kind of kill off people with disabilities and kind of breed disability out. So, I mean, it worries me that the Cornwall electorate would actually vote in such a man. And if they didn't know he actually said these remarks, then it really does kind of bring home the lesson that, when you go to the polls, when you go to the polling station to cast your vote in whatever election it is, whether it be a local election, a general election, or even, a European election in Great Britain, you need to do your homework on these people. You need to do your homework on the councillors. Do you agree with the views? Because, I mean, this, I believe that this is a massive, at best a massive oversight, that this guy has been allowed to once again, go in for politics. The second thing that really does ring alarm bells with me is the fact that the government have actually removed a lot of powers to bring forth meaningful sanctions. I mean, the Cornwall Council know this. But I mean, basically, for those of you who don't know what censure means, and I was a wee bit unclear on the meaning of the word myself, it turns out that all that's really happened is he's been given a formal warning, a slap on the wrist, if you will. Not even that. It's literally, I mean, yes, it's good that he's been banned from, sitting on disability committees, but I mean that's the smallest thing that should have been done. that would have been done, should have been done without question, answer, anything. I would expect that to happen, but the fact that he's basically, You know, basically what's just happened is, now there, don't do that again. You know, that really, really does worry me quite a bit. I mean, everyone knows that, you know, politics never works, and, you know, and that, yes, democracy is the best thing we have, but even it has its flaws. Everyone knows that. But at the same time, the fact that this councillor could not be removed, it worries me. I mean, I certainly don't feel safe with people like this in power. You know? I mean, yeah, Colin Brewer's not a Conservative, he's an independent councillor. But I mean, the political powers that be, it is no secret to how they feel about people with disabilities. PIP, Personal Independence Payment is replacing Disability Living Allowance. Employment and Support Allowance has replaced Incapacity Benefit. Universal Credit is going to replace all the separate benefits, and it's going to roll them all into one benefit. And the government have actually said they are not wanting to make things better for people with disabilities by rolling in these changes. They are literally wanting to save money. And indeed, a lot of the top brass in Westminster have really laid it in to people with disabilities quite a lot. I mean, one of the main examples that I can pull off the top of my head at the moment is Ian Duncan Smith, referring to ADHD as naughty boy syndrome. You know, and saying, oh yeah, it's really something when, I can't quote him word for word because I can't mind exactly what he said, but basically what he was getting at was, apparently, people can, get BMW 4x4 cars, like I think he said X3, I couldn't be too sure, BMW X3s, but just because their child has got quote unquote naughty boy syndrome. And that, well, I mean, that's inaccurate, because you don't get a Motability car if your child's got ADHD. Who does? Who has? And if they have, how did they do it? That's not usually what happens. The only way you can get Motability is if you're on the highest rate of mobility allowance and your disability living allowance. No car for anyone with ADHD. And if it is found that they are, needing the highest rate of mobility, then yeah, by all means, they should get a car. But also, you're not getting a BMW for free. If you've got a BMW off your Motability scheme, the reason you've got a BMW is because you've put money in. You can't even nowadays get a Vauxhall Astra for free. I mean, a lot of people, that I knew who had Motability cars would get Vauxhall Astras. But now, you can't really even get those. So, I mean, a lot of people get, really quite cheap, really kind of cheap Korean cars or things like that, There's folk, I reckon, that would struggle to, manage to get a Kia. But, I mean, they'll certainly, the Motability allowance will certainly not pay for a BMW, the full amount. That is just completely nonsensical. And in any case, you only have the car for 3 years. And then you go and get another one, and if you want a BMW again, you have to pay a lot of money again. It's, it really is, quite something. But I mean, yeah, I know I am kind of going off topic here. But yeah, as I was saying about ADHD just a minute ago, I will go back to the topic in a bit, but, if someone with ADHD is found to be needing highest rate mobility, then obviously it will be serious, because it's difficult to get high rate mobility off of anything. And yes, there are some people with ADHD, which is a real condition, by the way. I completely forgot to touch upon the fact that Ian Duncan Smith, kind of, implied that it was made up, because, it isn't, I mean, where the hell is that guy living anyway? The merry old land of Oz? You know, it is a real condition, and you know, some kids who have it can be a danger to themselves and others. You know, if having to walk on the streets. You know, even with adult supervision. You know, I mean, I talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people in autism in Scotland, and they, the general gist that I get is I'm not saying everyone's got Motability cars, because not everyone does, but the general gist of it is sometimes it's easier to kind of transport kids who are away down on the spectrum. It's easier to transport kids in a car than it is to walk with them. But anyway, back to this. You can't... I completely disagree with eugenics. Whether you do or not, I mean, that is your prerogative. Personally, I think eugenics is wrong. But I mean, how do you know? In any case, how do you know when a child is born with severe disabilities? How do you know that they're not going to what they are going to amount to? Because a lot of people, there's been doctors making assumptions about a child. I knew someone. I knew someone, and when they were born, the doctor said, "You'll never, this lad will never ride a bike." And when at the time that I knew this lad, he was 10, 11 years old. He was never off his bike. So, I mean, who's going to make the decision about, whether it's going to, you can kill, who's going to make the decision about, killing someone? Seriously, you can't, nobody's got that right. The only person who has the right, really, to kill a born child is the Lord God. And that is my opinion. I mean, again, I'm not expecting people to, kind of conform to, religious beliefs or anything like that. I don't do that. But, I mean, imagine how much of a spanner, I mean, that is kind of the least offensive word that I could come up with here. How much of a spanner would you look if you killed off, basically, if you're a doctor and you said, right, okay, this child's not really going to amount to anything, 2 height support cost needs, pull the, kind of, and it might not even be a case of pulling the plug. The child might come out, perfectly healthy, but just with a severe learning disability. In which case they'd actually have to actively kill them. They'd actually have to actively kind of give them a lethal injection or something. That's awful. And imagine kind of putting out someone's life. They could be a really productive member of society. I mean, yeah, I know there's a lot of people with severe disabilities that, do need support all their lives, but again, there's a lot of loving people out there willing to give that support. But at the same time, there are, some people with very severe disabilities, there's quite a lot of people with severe disabilities that will go on and do things in life that could change the world, make life better for all of us. I mean, seriously. And, what if a child is born, what if a child is born, and it seems that, at the time of birth, they don't have any disabilities, but they actually go on to develop disabilities later on in childhood. What then? Do you get to euthanize them? Do you get to euthanize them then? And where does it stop? If let's say if Colin Brewer was able to bring in, kind of have any sort of power, heaven forfend, what if he was to have any kind of power, and he was able to bring in a law, that you could euthanize kids who, newborn babies with with quote unquote high support needs. Where does it stop? That could open the floodgates for, laws bringing in, okay, well, we could, we could euthanize older children, with really high support needs. We could euthanize adults, and then, and then it could be like, oh yeah, euthanize them with lower support needs but still quite high, you know, and, you know, to the point where, you know, you have to kind of go in the closet about, you know, having disabilities. Now, this is a very bleak view. You know, this, I'm not saying that this would happen, but, you know, if you're in a position of power, and I know this, you know, because I've been in a position of political, you know, I've been in political power before, you know, and, well, not in government, but in NUS Scotland. But I've been there, and you have to be really very careful what you say. You know, you've got to be extremely careful the ideas that you promote, because, you know, if you say the wrong thing, as I have done in the past, people will be upset, and, you know, you could be potentially saying something which promotes very dangerous thinking. So, personally, you know, what would I do with Colin Brewer? I would have him removed. No questions asked, no answers given. I'm not saying I'd do it in a mafia way. I would actually go through the legal route and have him sacked. I think there is a very good case for actually having him removed and a snap election take place. Because you'd have to have the snap election, because, you know, what are you going to do? Appoint someone? That's not going to work. But still, remove Colin Brewer. You know, I mean, it's been said that he's going to resign, but he's not actually written it formally that he's going to do that. You know, get him out. Seriously, if you don't, then I will lose the wee thread of hope I have for English politics that I really don't have anymore. Anyway, that is the end of my rant. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, please feel free to subscribe. Instructions on how to do so will follow. And if you've not already done so, please feel free to watch my previous videos. And I hope you'll all join me for my next video. Thank you for watching, and see you again. Thank you very much.